Hey guys, Alexander with Gym Tech. Today we're going to be going over our Outback 2D and multi-mount suppressors, how to take them apart, how to put them back together, and how to clean them. So we're going to start with the Outback. Right here I have a pin spanner wrench. It's available Harbor Freight or Home Depot or wherever they sell tools. And in front of the Outback 2D here, just going to put that in, get it loose. Now, a lot of you know cleaning an Outback can be difficult at best. And one of the things that you can do, so I'm using a brand new Outback just to show it, but yours will be dirtier and used and probably a little more difficult to get out. And one of the things you can do to get all these K-baffles out of your tube is to use a dowel. You would take a dowel, insert it into the suppressor, and you really want to do this with some finesse and not get crazy. You don't want to monkey fist it, you don't want to hammer it too much. You just kind of want to use some light tapping just to break up that carbon if you need to. Don't just do it all willy-nilly. Just do it as needed. And the more often you take apart your suppressor, the easier it's going to be to clean. So if you get done shooting 100, 200 rounds or so, when you get home, take out your baffles. It's going to be a lot easier to take them out before everything solidifies and hardens. So that's just a note there. So first thing you want to do is clean your tube. There's a lot of different methods to cleaning suppressors. One of the things we recommend is soaking them overnight in a mixture of automatic transmission fluid and mineral spirits. So if you can get your suppressor apart, soak it in all the pieces, individually, soak them overnight in that mixture, and then the next day pull them out, use a brush, clean out the inside of your tube, make sure you clean these threads real well, clean your titanium thread insert, and then each individual baffle. You're going to clean those to the best of your ability. You're going to use a brush and get in here and try and get into the cone. Try and keep this area clean. Right here we have the blast baffle. You know it's the blast baffle because you have this hole in the top right here, or the bottom, or the side, however you want to look at it. It doesn't matter. Just know that that hole means this is the blast baffle. And what that means is that it is the first one to go into your suppressor. That is where a majority of the blast will hit it. The other important baffle is your end baffle. You know it's the end because it is smooth along the face here. It doesn't have these little indexing tabs. And so that one is going to go all the way down here. So as you're looking at each of these and scrubbing them and cleaning them, just be sure to check them. When you're looking at a baffle, you want to check and make sure that you're not having any baffle strikes or any rubs. You'll see if you're using any kind of a copper washed or copper jacketed kind of bullet, you'll see copper on here, and especially towards the exit hole of your suppressor as well. Now, a lot of questions we get is guys will look down their suppressor and they're going to see this relief cut. They're going to see that, or they'll see the cut right in here. Now, those are supposed to be there. Those are to direct the gases inside of the suppressor to make them go where they need to, so you get the best sound suppression, so you're creating turbulence within the tube of your suppressor. That is not a baffle strike. That is a machined part of the baffle. A baffle strike is going to look like chewed up metal. It's going to look like it was shot, because it was. So that's just also another important note. You always want to inspect all your equipment as you're taking it apart. Look for any sort of damage, any sort of fractures or hairline cracks, anything like that. It's rare, but it does happen, so always maintain your equipment. So when it comes to your baffles, these are obviously brand new, bright, shiny aluminum, awesome looking baffles. Yours are never going to look like that again. As soon as you fire rounds through the suppressor, they're going to become dull, they're going to become worn looking, they're going to become dirty. They're just going to have carbon buildup on them. You're going to see a lot of carbon buildup in here. You're going to see carbon buildup along the outside, along the inside of the cone. All of that is normal. You're not going to be able to clean the baffles to get them to look like this. It's important to note that, what we would expect to see from a set of baffles that are after 1,000 rounds, they'd look a little bit like this. Or after 5,000 rounds, we would expect them to look closer to this. And then, you know, here's a suppressor looking down inside of it that's not going to come apart because it was never taken apart for cleaning. It was left together and the carbon just settled. That's about what this would look like. So you kind of get an idea of how to, you know, age your baffles accordingly. You know, you've had your suppressor a couple of years now, you shoot 22 every day, they're going to look more worn than the guy that shot his suppressor a couple of times a year for the past couple of years. It's just the nature of it. So don't expect your baffles to look like this except when you get it from your dealer. That's when they're going to look this clean and this pretty. And if you want them to stay this pretty, don't you shoot your suppressor. That's all there is to that. So now that we've cleaned the baffles to the best of our ability, we've scrubbed them down, they haven't been damaged, we'll look at the end cap. You're going to see some buildup on the end cap right inside of here. Totally normal. Again, you expect that. So you're going to want to brush that out with some CLP. When cleaning the baffles, you really don't want to use dental picks or screwdrivers or your pocket knife, any sort of sharp instrument, because, you know, if you're just trying to scrape off the carbon, ultimately you're going to damage the baffle. You're going to create grooves in here that's just going to have carbon adhere to it that much better the next time. It's best to just avoid doing that. Use a brush. In some cases, you can use a brass brush if you're careful with it. You know, don't put a lot of pressure on it. You don't want to scratch it up. Brass probably be okay on the aluminum. When it comes to using a brass brush on here, you know, you want to be careful. You want to take your time. You don't want to put a lot of force into it. You just want to lightly brush it off, get some of the carbon off. Same with the inside of your tube. You can use a brass brush if you need to. I would not start using a brass brush immediately. I would start with the softer bristle brushes and take your time with it. Keep the mounting surface clean, keep these threads clean. When you're putting it back together, this is where you want to take a little bit of time, because putting it back together in a certain order is going to maximize the suppression. We talked about these relief cuts that are meant for directing the gas. If you just have those all in one line, you're not going to get as good of suppression as if staggering them. So the first thing you want to do, and it goes over all of this in the user manual, it tells you how to put this all back together. First thing you want to do is start with that front baffle, the one we talked about that has no indexing tabs on the front here. Okay, so what I like to do is take this baffle, and with that hole, I like to have it pointing towards me. So put it face down on the table, which means the relief cut on this side is pointing away from me, okay? So then you want to take, and first thing you should do is set aside your blast baffle so you don't get it mixed up in the stack. Blast baffle has that hole up at the top there. Set that aside. So put yours face down with that relief cut here facing away from you. The next one, you want to take that relief cut and have it facing towards you. So you have your first one pointed away from you. Your next one is going to be pointing towards you. Use those indexing tabs, set it down there. All right? The next one, you're going to have that relief cut again facing away from you. Okay? So we're going to set that down, indexing tabs, a little bit of finesse, steady hands, surgeon. Perfect. Now the next one, that relief cut, I like to have it going to the left. My left, your right, my left. Use those indexing tabs and set that in there, just like that. Now the next baffle, you're gonna have that relief cut pointing to the right. So essentially you're staggering all of these to give yourself maximum sound suppression. You're directing the gases into different areas within the suppressor. Now, the very last one, the blast baffle, you're just going to have it go the opposite way again. You're going to take that relief cut and have it point to the left. Now that you've assembled all 6 of the baffles, take your tube very easily. And oh, there goes that finesse thing again, huh? Yeah, I can get my dick beaters all over it. Perfect. Just like that. And now it's in there. Take your cap, put it back in. Now, when you're putting your cap back on, a lot of guys might take it, just that, good to go, don't really hear any rattle, no big deal, right? it's best to use your pin spanner wrench to tighten it back down. Now, there isn't really a torque specification on that. You just want to go till it's hand tight. I mean, you're still probably going to take this off again in the future, so there's no reason to get crazy with it. And that is a fully assembled Outback. Now, another thing I want to talk about on the Outback is shooting it wet. Now, with 22 rimfire, shooting it wet, you're not getting a huge benefit out of it. You know, it's fun to do, absolutely, it will be quieter. So, if you choose to shoot it wet, take a drop or two of CLP and put it right inside the entrance chamber. Not on the threads, but just right inside on that first baffle, right in the blast chamber, and leave it. Thread it on your gun, and then you can shoot it wet. Again, that'll last you, maybe 5 to 10 or 15 rounds, but it will be quieter. The other thing you'd want to do is when you're going to be storing this long term, let's say you're deploying or you decided you don't want to shoot anymore, you might want to do a light coat of CLP on each of those baffles, light coat on the inside of your tube, and a light coat on the outside of your tube. Wipe it down a little bit, and then you can do kind of long-term storage on this, especially if you're somewhere with high humidity. That pretty much does it on the Outback. Once again, keep your threads clean, make sure everything went back together fine. It's not going to destroy the suppressor if your baffles were off one way or another, or if you did it opposite of the way I did. It really doesn't matter.